أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعلني وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Happy Sunday, everyone. Inshallah, we're going to continue with the raise the supreme sign. And as a journey that we're doing as a traveler in this universe, we all have questions as we observe the universe and as we interact with everything, just like this traveler is doing. So he's been on a journey so far as we've been reading through the supreme sign. And if you've been with us in this journey, you probably saw that he's really looking for the meaning in the universe. He's looked at the physical universe at different realms where he went to explore, what his existence means, what the seas mean, what the plants and animals means. And then he went and looked for guidance, and he was in the time of the the saints and the scholars, and then he looked in the era of the prophethood. And in the era of prophethood, he in his own journey in his mind, this traveler saw what kind of impact this so-called messenger of God that was appointed, what was the message that he was bringing, and what kind of impact did he have. And from that time, he saw that a community of the most unlettered people in a desert where there was no resource of any kind, and such a revolution was established by just the message and a meaning into the people's lives, that these people from the zero education became true human beings. So we went over some of these discussions along the way, and then now the traveler is looking at what this message of the Qur'an, which is something that is taken as the speech of God. So he's working on that to see, hey, what is the Lord of the universe telling me or is mentioning in the truths of the Quran, as he puts it. And then we went over the first point and the second point about the importance of the miracles and what miracles, the role that miracles played in bringing about, the seriousness of the message. Like whoever was appointed to be displaying those messages must be taken seriously, that he is indeed somebody who is employed by the source of the universe. And then we looked at the Quran in the second point, where how it brought about, just talks to the human intellect, the minds, the human side, the spirit, and gets that connection back to the source, the source of existence, the one who gave you the spirit to begin with, the one who endowed you with all those tools that you're using in this journey, the qualities that you have, your feelings, your senses. So all that are being put to proper use, and one can reconnect them back to their origin, or the one who is the one who gave, the source that gave them and endowed them with these tools and, human character, senses, feelings. So now we're going to go into the third point, inshallah, with all of you guys together. So let's do that. The third point. So the Qur'an from that age down to the present. So from that age down to the present, since when it was revealed till now, has demonstrated such eloquence that it caused the value attached to the odes known as 7 hanging poems that were written in gold on the walls of the Kaaba, to descend to such a point that the daughter of Labid, when taking down her father's poem from the Kaaba, said, "Compared with the verses of the Qur'an, this no longer has any value." So I think, as I recall, Brother Ali had mentioned some of the historical background of this as well, how he mentioned at that time the poetry, there was an example that was given about, you know, when the message of the Quran was being recited, many poets kind of, couldn't take it. It was it stood out in such a fashion that, the worldly poetry just couldn't match it. Because it talks, it pierces your heart in a way, it talks to you as a human being. At least it should. That the regular poetry, which was the culture of that time when the Quran was first revealed historically, it was a culture of words and poetry, oral culture, with poetry being very significant. And I'm sure somebody can talk on that as well. And here, as the culture dictated, I'm assuming that, all these, highly regarded poems were displayed in the Kaaba as, the 7 hanging poems. There's probably some significance to it, that were written in gold on the walls of the Kaaba. It tells me that how important things are to a civilization, to a society. Just like in this day and age, there might be values. Maybe might be some, like Statue of Liberty holds a significance maybe for some people in the New York, or there are some symbolic things that take hold as, a sign that, this is what our values are. So all those poems, when compared with the verses of the Quran, no longer displayed any value. So this is another thing that got the attention of the traveler. So a Bedouin poet heard this verse being recited, "Therefore expound openly what you are commanded," which is Quran chapter 15, verse 94. Therefore expound openly what you are commanded. So this is an example of one of the verses. And this man who heard it immediately prostrated. They asked him, "Have you become a Muslim?" "No," he replied, "I was prostrating before the eloquence of this verse." Thousands of scholars and litterateurs, like geniuses of the science of rhetoric, such as al-Qahir, Jurjani, Sakkaki, and Zamakhshari, have unanimously decided that the eloquence of the Qur'an is beyond human capacity and it is unattainable. So it's interesting how the first point is more about the miracles and truths, whatever is being said. Second is about the revolution and that the message brings in one's life. And the third is more goes into like the eloquence of the verses of the Quran. And I assume these scholars, science of rhetoric, these probably have commented a lot on the eloquence of the Quran. Of course, if you guys, anybody would like to share their take on this, I'm just trying to understand along with you all. So please bear with me. The Quran has also from that time forward invited to the field of combat all arrogant and egoistic litterateurs and rhetoricians, and said to them in a manner calculated to break their arrogance. Come, produce a single surah like it, or else accept perdition and humiliation in this world and the hereafter. Despite this challenge, the obstinate rhetoricians of that age abandoned the short path of producing a single surah like the Quran. Despite this challenge, the obstinate rhetoricians of that age abandoned the short path of producing a single surah like the Quran, and instead chose that long path of casting their persons and property into danger. This proves that the short path cannot be taken. So it's interesting, like once, based on how the rhetoric and the message of the Quran, as it came through, revealed to the different generations, and in the first generation, in the time of where the rhetoric and literary poetry was very dominant and people were impressed, and it was taken as something valuable in the society culture. So at that time, because there was no challenge that they could raise against the verses of the Quran. So instead of like taking on the challenge, they chose basically to damage the, the one who's bringing the message, the personality, or they go into personal, what is it called, ad hominem or something, that where if you can't argue with a person, you start attacking them personally, just like in politics. So I'll let Brother Ali continue. Please take it away, Brother Ali.
This is an important subject. This Quran's being cannot be challenged. Why? That you can say some words like the words of the Quran, and you say, look, I'm also saying some sentences in Arabic, especially let's say that somebody is really expert on Arabic literature. They may say, look, I'm also Khalil Gibran. They say, here is my poems, for example. Why not? Now, Quran says, no, impossible. That is interesting. And some people also, we hear, especially in the West, study Quran in order to learn Arabic. And when they learned from the Quran that it cannot be challenged, they said, okay, as much as they know Arabic, whatever it is, they start saying something, imitating the Quran, and say, look, I also said it. Come on, what is that? Because their intention to learn Arabic in order to become an Orientalist, they challenge the Quran. That is a political project. Anyway, that is their responsibility. What concerns us here is interesting and very important. We have to be really aware of the importance of the subject. Now, what is that? I will ask a question. What was the challenging thing, very famous, everybody knows it, during the prophetic, Pharaoh and prophet struggle? Everybody knows it. Come on, somebody say it. What was the most famous, challenging subject?
Magic?
Yeah, of course, everybody knows. So, magic. What happened? Moses, the prophet Musa came with a message, and the miracle of the message was defeating the magicians' magic, because magicians were the scholars of Pharaoh. So these magicians were doing the things, as the Quran indicates, in the name of Pharaoh. Yeah. Bismi Musa, Rabbi Musa. They were performing it. That is Quranic example teaching us. Historically, you don't have to prove it, if it was the case or not. Doesn't matter. Quran says, I am here to challenge what is prominent in the civilization. I am here to challenge it, and they cannot compete with it. Even they want to imitate it, it cannot really replace it. I mean, here it is, equivalent or better. No, they can't do that. So magical devices or the magics were performing within this world, using the laws of the universe, principles of the order of the universe, and manipulating it. I mean, I can do, for example, there is something here, yeah, and you can just wipe it on a, for example, wool, a plastic thing, and then keep it on the paper. What happens? It attracts to the paper because there's a magnifying power there. You understand? If someone doesn't know this technique, they will say, oh, magical. Why? A plastic spoon, let's say, attracted to something else itself. Of course, you can do some mysterious movements and get it closer to the paper, it attracts it. For example, I mean, if people didn't know the technique of it, it looks magical. Yeah. The worst, when I was a very young child, the first time in the area where I was, television was introduced to the society. Black and white, very simple. Take one channel, okay? And some people, old women especially, looked at the screen of the TV, or that was a big, huge TVs, not a flat screen. Huge TVs, as if there was a man behind it in the tube, behind the screen. If you know this tubes before the technology developed and started making flat screen, and they used to go behind the screen, try to see if there is somebody speaking from behind the screen. Magical for them. They don't know the technology. It's quite long. But technology was taking place within the conditions of the world. It means order of the universe. But Moses came with what? With a message, not within the order of driven, taken from the universe, order of the universe, but from the source of the order of the universe. Ah, that is completely different. That's a different subject now. So come to the prophetic time. The poets were scholars of that time in that society. Now, because in order to really present a beautiful poem which will attract people's attention, you have to know the most important information for the Arab people, genealogy and the heroes of that generation or generation of the tribes. Heroes, so they know it, they knew it, in order to become a scholar of that time, that knowledge was really necessary. Okay. Quran came with a knowledge, again, with a kind of knowledge, again, from not the word, not genealogy of the people. It means ancestral history, you can say history or legend of the tribe, because they were all about tribe, but it seems to be different subjects, but mostly in order to appreciate the value of the poet's tribe, they have to use an analogy. Most of the women, I don't know, but they say, the professionals say, women, beautiful women, it symbolizes what? The tribe. Quran came with a completely different subject, not from the world, not tribal, tribal value, tribal story, but the creator of the universe, destruction of the universe cannot exist by itself, cannot sustain itself. Yeah, the God, the concept of God was known, as everybody must have heard of it, but God is the creator of the universe. He holds everything under his sustainership. It means he sustains everything. Everything depends on it, in its existence, in the continuation of its existence. Everything depends on it. And human beings are being educated here, given opportunities to learn the reality and practice it. So this is the word of training. No one is above others. Oh, these are all completely different subjects. You see the parallel now. Magicians of Moses, or Moses' time, scholars, poets of Muhammad's time, scholars, come to our time. Scientists who study the universe within itself are the scholars. What happens? Now, they study the universe, how wonderful things are working here, finding out within the order of the universe, presenting the magical tools, so the people get pride of it. America is the leader of technology. China is going to win it. Japan was once upon a time the leading nation for technology. Getting proud of them. Olympics on the sports turned into tribal competition. Quran says, sorry, these are all trash, false pride. Yeah, you can study the order, but it doesn't mean that you are the scholar of the time, telling or finding out, conveying the reality. Reality comes from ghaib. It means the creator, the absolute being, the source of existence of this universe. Right? So no one who stays within the universe doesn't connect himself to the source of existence, can compete with the Quran, because it is completely different subject. What you are saying is only imitation of it, trying to compete with it by imitating its context. But this is your, worthless, bound to fail attempt, because it comes from the absolute being. Yours attempt comes from your imitation of the Quran. What happened? Muslim philosophers, but happen to be within the Islamic world, Muslim world. The people are Muslim. They say we are Muslims, we believe in the Quran, etc. They were the children of Muslims. What happened? They started imitating the secular philosophy, but mixing it with the concepts they borrowed from the teachings of the Quran. Now, what happened? The combination of it. They also claim that we are the philosophers, scholars of the Muslim nation. It is again the, how do you say, twisting, maybe there may be another word of hijacking the Quranic concepts under the guise of their truthfulness, but their material is what? What they learned from the Quran, as far as in general senses, the Quranic concepts are used in general senses. That is as far as this attempt is concerned, they said how God creates the universe and putting the God there, but explaining how it happens in the way that the materialist Greek philosophers did, mixing with, as the Beni Israel's Samiri did, Samaratin they say, did, mixing with some traces of the messengers, making it sound religious, but completely the way it is explained and presented is, or was at that time and still is, worldly, secular, within the universe, conditions of the universe, doesn't get its source from the absolute being. That is impossible. That is why the Quran's concepts cannot be imitated either by original thoughts or by imitative thoughts. Impossible. When you imitate, you mix up. So if someone is very careful, they can make the distinction easily. This is borrowed from the Quranic teaching, or it means God's teaching. This side is mixed up with the worldly explanation of the events. It means secular explanation of the events. You can easily find it out. You cannot imitate it. Of course, the ones who really love the Quranic language, if you like, Quranic way of speaking, wants to imitate the Quran in order to appreciate its value, not to challenge it. We are talking about those people with a bad intention to challenge it. You have this like the magicians of Pharaoh, like the poets of the pagan Arab tribes. That this is a different case, but with the sincere intention to show the love. For example, I pray with the language of the Quran, change the Quranic language verses in the form of prayer. That is quite normal. That is quite expected. It means assimilating the message of the Quran within my own human feelings. These are very important to me, very important matters to take under consideration and think about it. That is why Quran is unchallengeable. Why? You cannot challenge the knowledge of the absolute being. The Quran is coming from this infinite knowledge of the absolute being. Yours is gathered here and there from within the universe. it is impossible to compete with the Creator, as we cannot create anything, even a single atom in the universe, as God creates it. Nothing can give existence to anything as God does. Nothing can give life to anything as the Creator of the universe does. Nobody can speak as the Creator of the universe does. That is why Qur'an is inimitable. You cannot imitate it, let alone unchangeable. You cannot change it. Now, if you cannot imitate something, you cannot challenge it at all. Challenge, I would say challenge. You cannot challenge it at all, because you are looking at the matters on a horizontal level. Quran, or the speech of God, looks at the matter and analyze it on the vertical matter. There is no parallel at all. They are speaking completely from different, opposite perspectives. It is impossible. That is why it is impossible to imitate the Quran. This subject is very controversial subject. It took me years to understand and analyze, get the gist of the matter, cracks of the matter. And really, I appreciate, alhamdulillah, Nursi's writings, who helped me a lot to make this distinction all over the world. I cannot say this chapter deals with it. There are specific chapters that who wrote, the author of the books that we are reading wrote, but they are more densely related, but it is scattered everywhere in his writings. Wassalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, Brother Ali. MashaAllah. It was so the challenge, I mean, it's a subtle matter, as you kind of explained it, Brother Ali. And so the imitation of the Quran, you said you can easily see it, because any author, for example, even this author that we're reading, I mean, he would not say that this is his, whatever his explanations are okay based on his understanding, but of course the actual message is he's benefiting from the Quran himself. He's taking that. Now what, I mean, there's like good intention and bad intention. Of course, this author, for what I can see, is very clear from a good intention, wants to educate everyone and bring them in connection with the Quran. And of course, there are other bad intentions who want to distance and go back to the magicians of that day and age, or into the, as you know, the technology of our time. You know, take your attention, divert it, and think about the worldly things rather than, you know, going to your source of existence. So yeah, it makes sense on how, you know, this can be controversial. And is there like any of these, for example, these references who talk the works of these, are they all, is there any significance in terms of why they're mentioned in terms of the eloquence of the Quran? And from the eloquence you can conclude about the inimitability, like you cannot imitate from the eloquence?
Perhaps, yeah, maybe.
I mean, from the message side, I understand, and you know, the authority in terms of who is speaking, the owner of this universe, the one who gives you existence, the one who knows you, has, you know, you have that intimate connection with this source. But how do you judge the eloquence based on what? I mean, the eloquence, okay, one is you can take from the words, Arabic words from, and then just compose something. Whereas the way the Quran's verses are phrased, No. So is eloquence a criteria? Anybody?
Excuse me. I thought you are referring to my long story. The eloquence is, you can see the eloquence in two perspectives. One is meaning, the content. Content is completely different. What I previously emphasized on the importance of content, as well as this content, the content which includes the absolute knowledge, how concisely it is expressed in the Quran, it is eloquent side of it, concisely to the point and in such a way that it will pass the message to the new generations of every age, every generation, every century. That is impossible to challenge it because we don't know what the next generation are going to be interested in. Not every, for example, before something was, for example, power in the military sense was the prominent figure of the society who is more advanced. It is still so. But nowadays, common people, majority of the people, don't pay attention to the power, military power, but technology is taking place now. Now, technology, for example, before colonialism, previously to this period, colonialism, who are the colonialist people? They were the admired people. Now, no. For example, the movies, music industry, traveling through the technological devices was in the subject now. That is why we have to look at the Quran and see its message as a source of answer to challenge this message against the power of the technology. Technology comes from where? Science. Science is utilized in order to convey the materialist, secularist ideology as a means of vehicle to convey the message. What they say? Look, they don't believe in science, but they use and they are very happy the products of technology, science, the technology which is the product of scientific research. They mixed up like pharaohs, like poems of the Muhammad's time, like magicians of Pharaoh's time. These are examples. They use it as a means of what? For example, magicians use the technology that the common people don't know and then say, in the name of Pharaoh, right? In the name of Pharaoh. For example, somebody makes some technological gadgets, and what do they say? In the name of science. So, what the scientists say is correct because science works. Look at the logic. It looks very consistent. The interpretation of the scientists' interpretation of the existence, the reality of the existence of the matter, universe, everything in this universe, is correct because science work. Look at the replacement. Magicians, what they do is really looks real in the name of Pharaoh. What is it to do with Pharaoh? Is Pharaoh himself as a magician? No, he doesn't know. He has power. That's it. He gets the money from poor people and delivers it to those magicians, scholars, to find out more and more things so that the people will admire your work. If you present your work in my name, I will feed you. That has been happening historic down till now. If you support the governing of the administration of that time, you get the highest position and well-paid person, well-fed person. Reminds me animal farm. Yeah, feeding the dogs when they are needed to be used. Now, take the Quran's balagha could not be challenged that time because of the completely different content of the message and also conciseness of the message, not unnecessary things. But later on it became more and more, if you like, unrolled the layers of meaning in the course of centuries. It became even impossible to imitate in language-wise as well. Why? None of the people can say a sentence 500, 1,000 years later, the content of the sentence as it is presented in the linguistic form be still valid and giving completely different message to the people. And also demonstrating them to and presenting them a different content, not radically, but depending on the area of interest of the century. No one can do that. It became obvious now to the nation, to everybody who wants to learn and study and see how the Quran reveals itself in the course of history. 15,000 plus commentaries written on the Quran, improving. Although some of them keep repeating the history, but they are losing their value in the eyes of the people. Those people who are interested in dealing with the problems of the century, but still they repeat in the name of learning knowledge, transfer the information. But as we read the book of this person, for example, this writer, this author of the book, he never imitates them. He just brings out the message from the seemingly static nature of the Quran. That is very important. Looks like the same verse, same sentence. But the dynamic side of it benefits from it and tries to help the people to understand what the reality is all about. That is, we can study the eloquence of the Quran from two perspectives at the same time. One is content, which is definitely unchallengeable. The other one is the language used in such a way that this content may contain, or this content is ingrained in the language of the Quranic verses. So we have to study it. Some verses are very clear. Some verses are, especially the later period of the Prophet's time, revelations are not really very much challenging in their nature as far as the universal side of the message of the Quran, uh, as they are, if you like, included in the earlier revelations of the Quran. Now, this is the essence of the Quran, which are the subjects which are related to belief, foundations of the belief, early revelations of the Quran. Later revelations of the Quran mixed up with this early nature, the nature of the early revelations, plus practical side of the life. Practical side of the life doesn't need to be explained or presented in the most eloquent form. It is something like, for example, don't let your child enter your room, or you don't enter. These are beautiful, especially this chapter Hujurat is a beautiful chapter describing human behavior and etiquette. Don't enter the house. Don't name, put, I don't know how to say it, blame other nations. Don't put nicknames on other people and mock them, etc. And also how to behave before the prophetic message, and between yourself, how are you going to organize your life? How are you going to avoid from gossiping, backbiting, and how are you going to avoid from tribal competition? How the human beings are created equal from the same father and mother relationship, etc., etc. Practical side. They don't have to be very eloquent. Now, for example, the difference between belief and submission. Well, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. It's an ordinary Arabic language. But the message in those verses, the message is completely unique because it wasn't the common time. For example, that time. For example, those يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من نفس واحدة. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. It means all these different nations, different tribes, different races are created, and they created to form a community of their own in order to become to know each other. Forgive my language, please. I know that I'm speaking a lot. I want to hurry. In order to get to know each other and help each other, not to fight, not to compete, not to blame one another, not to be oppressive one over the other. It means equality of human beings. These are practical matters, and you don't see the same eloquence, the quality of eloquence in literature, value of the literature, as you see in the verses which establish the foundations of the belief system of the Quran. Of course, it varies, but I mean, you have to study it and you have to see it. After studying it as much as you can, you really appreciate it if you can. Inshallah, why not? Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Brother Ali. So this imitability and challenge, I think it's a good topic for a thesis probably for someone. How?
But only one. If 50, 100 people do PhD on it, it is worth it. The Quran is already there to prove it.
Yeah. So in the name of God or in the name of any magicians of the time, of how the
Yeah, in the name of science.
yeah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Would anybody else want to comment? If not, we'll move on. Thank you, Brother Ali. Thank you. That was beautiful. Millions of Arabic
So
books.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was trying to get my hand up, but I had a question.
Sure,
You
go
know, if I may ask, when the Muslim scholars, there was a point made, when the Muslim scholars, philosophers were reading Greek philosophy and interpreting with Quran's point of view, was there why I'm trying to understand what their reason for doing this was, because in other places, like we see with technology, there's some kind of political ambitions behind it. But I'm surprised that amongst the Muslims themselves, not necessarily influenced, apparently not influenced by outside, they were arriving at this type of conclusion. And I just wanted to understand how concerning that is. And also, I can understand in other places why mixing Quranic speech with other ideas is of use. But amongst the Muslims, I'm not sure I understand why it was done. I don't know if there's any comment on that or if it's outside of our topic.
Don't you hear the shuyukh contradicting each other according to the interest point, according to point of interest of them? Nowadays, don't you hear the completely distorted interpretations of the Quran to justify, for example, homosexuality, lesbianism, equality of rights of different genders? And don't you hear them? Why? It's happening every time. So, as if we are robots. No, we are not robots. We have free will. Not because I identify myself with Islam does not necessarily make all my senses, emotions, ambitions, caprices Islamic. No. Every time, every people, you and me, always have the tendency to justify my own stand and understanding. I cannot claim that I submit myself to the teachings of the Quran 100% with no deviation, not at all. I have certain caprices. We should never ever forget human free will. How many times we repeated this word? If an equation misses human free will in it, none of these equations will be right as far as the reality of existence is concerned. Reality of existence is always taking place under the leadership of human free will. Human free will means you can, I can, you can. I mean, no one said my free will always chooses to obey the Quranic message because I claim that I am a Muslim. Don't you see in the Muslim countries what is going on? The administration system is the most corrupt administration system. The military power is the most corrupt military power. Where you can find them? In Muslim countries. They also have the Quran. They also go, for example, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الثورة. What does it mean? Now, we Muslims believe in equality, and then, of course, goes into equality in one type for the hulk, for the lower situation. You will be equal in the lowest situation, and the military power who realized or executed the coup d'etat in the country. How many times I experienced it in my life history. They say, we are here to help you. And at the end, the generals become the richest man, the people in the world after the coup d'etat. Don't you know that? Mixed
Okay.
religion. Yes, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So it's the same issue, no difference.
Of
That's
course,
what I'm understanding.
caprice,
Exactly.
caprice, competition. Of
Yeah.
course, it may be justified to a certain extent. For example, the madrasa system was going into slow deterioration, and
Brother, you got muted.
corrupted madrasa system. Some people became interested in interpreting the word as against what the madrasa students and scholars, professors actually, mudarrisun, say. So they found another source out there in order to understand what was going on in the other world, which is quite legitimate. But they use it as a tool to challenge the somehow corrupted madrasa scholars' attitude. That's why no one can is 100% right. No one can be 100% wrong. Every ideology definitely starts with a right proposition. There's an expression they say they put their leg or feet on a right point and then deviate from it as far as their caprices desire them to do. So we shouldn't say that none of the Muslim scholar. Muslim is the one who was born into a Muslim family. Don't you see many atheistic groups consists of the various children of the Muslim families. I mean, you can see it around you. May Allah prohibit within your own family. Yeah, you educate them, make them memorize the Quran, it then become such a corrupt man. And his name is, or her name is, Abu Bakr, Abdul Rahman. And what they propagate is atheistic ideologies. Yeah, I see many examples in Iran, in Turkey, in Egypt. Many atheist agnostic groups, especially these social media groups, supporting, and with the name they says Muhammad something, Muhammad Hamid, and write and saying that Quran is nothing but trash. Look at this verse. What does it mean? It is so primitive, something like that. Of course, they just demonstrate their ignorance, but the people don't know.
Yeah.
So
So
Muslim scholar means this, yeah.
in this point, I understand. That's clear. I mean, but when I think about the Muslim scholarship, all collecting.
Again, misunderstood. Muslim scholarship. No, not Muslim scholarship. With the title of Muslim name, human scholarship. Every human being has say about anything. So not Muslim scholarship. Every Muslim is a human. Every human is followable.
Okay, I thought it was a organized, structured, established thing that was going on. But yeah, I anyway, I think your point is quite sound. We should never imitate. I mean, that is the bottom line. We have to keep reevaluating what we are saying and what we understand. I think this is the only way you can solve this problem. And so imitation should stop, or imitation should not exist, really.
It doesn't have to be organized. People believe and come together. For example, why are we here together? Do you think it is a conspiracy brings us together here, that we have a hidden agenda. No, we want to learn something, and this subject that we are interested in is our common interest field. So we cannot say that it's an organized conspiracy in order to corrupt the Muslim society, something. No one says that I am here to corrupt the Muslim society. They say, oh, this is what Islam is. I give the example. I mean, there are many, many fractions in Christianity, in Judaism, and in Muslims, as the hadith says, more than them. So fractions. Does any of them say that we don't believe in the Quran? They say Quran is our guide. We are defending the Quran as a Muslim sect, as the language of the Quran says. They divide it into parts in order to follow their caprices, ambitions, and justify their position by quoting the verses from the Quran. I may do the same thing. I have to watch out. So am I really interpreting the Quran according to my own ambitions? That is always possible. Watch out, make istighfar. It doesn't mean that I made istighfar so that I'm right. Not at all. Not at all. We have to always in the position to pray, to be guided to the straight path of the truth, reality, al-haq. We have to be there. We have to always in prayer, and we have to present our supplications to God. Please, God, don't let me go astray. Why? I have a free will. Bear in mind, wherever an idea came out, it is coming out of the mouth of a person who has free will. Free will means not robot, not a machine, interprets it. It doesn't mean that all interpretations are wrong. No, we have to watch out ourselves first. Am I really making it up in order to be the winner of the debate? That is our daily life. How many families are there in the world? Wife and husband, or including children, have the common ground, 100% confirming each other? I don't think any. The closest people sharing their private life, wife and husband, have various perspectives of the same object, same matter. It is human. It's quite normal. It is what is expected of human being. That's why we are in this position of asking for forgiveness, asking for help, seeking refuge with God. Why? I have a free will. My name is Ali. It means sometimes I receive a message for some or call for something. They say, Assalamu alaikum, brother Ali. I say, okay, alaikum assalam. Do I know? No, no, no. I've got your name on the advertisement you put on somewhere. And I know that you are a Muslim. Wow, how do you know? Your name is Ali, isn't it? Do you see what I mean? My label becomes automatically Muslim. What I am doing is a completely different, maybe not Islamic at all. Don't you see many shop owners in your area, wherever you are? Their names Ali, Muhammad, Asadullah. And what they do? They sell liquor. Possible? Who come to New York and see. Everywhere is full of. Okay, possible.
All right. Thank you for the exchange of. That was a good conversation. Anybody else would like to say anything before we move on to the next paragraph? We have food for thought, I guess, for everyone. Okay, millions of Arabic books are in circulation, some written by friends of the Qur'an in order to resemble and imitate it. Others written by its enemies in order to confront and criticize it. So millions of Arabic books are in circulation, some written by friends of the Qur'an in order to resemble and imitate it. Others written by its enemies in order to confront and criticize it. Not one of them has been able to attain the level of the Qur'an. Should a common man even listen to them, he is sure to say, the Qur'an does not resemble these other books, nor is it in the same class as they. It must be either below them or above them. No one, no unbeliever or fool in the world can say that it is below them, it referring to the Qur'an. Hence, its degree of eloquence is above all of them. The Qur'an's degree of eloquence is above all of them. Yeah, so this is, I think, we discussed this along what Brother Ali was saying, with a good intention, the friends of the Quran, and then there are the enemies who try to look for, primitiveness in the verses. Oh, this is so primitive, versus, not seeing the who is what, how it talks to the human being in terms of the meanings that it could contain. Simplistic reading versus a human reading. So once a man read the verse, all that is in the heavens and the earth extols and glorifies God. All that is in the heavens and the earth extols and glorifies God. This is from the Quran, chapter 57, verse 1. All that is in the heavens and the earth extols and glorifies God. He said, on hearing this verse or reading, I cannot see any miraculous eloquence in this verse. He said, I cannot see any miraculous eloquence in this verse. He was told, go back to that age like the traveler and listen to the verse as recited there. Imagining himself to be there before the revelation of the Quran, he saw that all the beings in the world were living in an unstable, transient world, in empty, infinite, and unbounded space. He saw that all the beings in the world were living in an unstable, transient world, in empty, infinite, and unbound space, in confusion and darkness, lifeless and without consciousness and purpose. Suddenly he heard this verse proclaimed by the tongue of the Quran, and the verse, remove the veil from in front of the universe and illumine the face of the globe. The verse proclaimed by the tongue of the Quran and the verse removed a veil from in front of the universe and illumined the face of the globe. This pre-eternal speech, this eternal decree, gave instruction to all conscious beings drawn up in the ranks of succeeding centuries. This pre-eternal speech, this eternal decree gave instruction to all conscious beings drawn up in the ranks of succeeding centuries in such a fashion that the cosmos became like a vast mosque. All of creation, headed by the heavens and the earth, was engaged in vital remembrance of God and proclamation of His glory, was joyously and contentedly fulfilling its function. All of this our traveler observed, thus tasting the degree of the eloquence of the Qur'an and comparing the other verses to it by analogy. And comparing the other verses to it by analogy. He understood one of the many thousands of wise reasons for the conquest of half the globe and a fifth of humanity by the eloquent murmuring of the Qur'an, for the uninterrupted continuance of its respected and magnificent monarchy for 14 centuries. Brother Ali, please go ahead.
Now, not related to this last point. The last point is interesting, but easy to understand for as far as I can see. But we can talk about it. But for the previous discussion, it was very important, and also Adam's question and concern was very important. Why? Because we are misled with this. If somebody appears to be within a very ancient, devout, Muslim cloth, example, for example, dress, then we tend to make trust in it. And if someone starts quoting from the Quran, narrating the hadith, and we tend to admire him, therefore accept what he says. The author the author of this book that we are reading says it is excellent and true. He says, look, I may be deceiving you as well. I may be I may be also deceiving you. Be careful. Don't take what I say. No, don't take as the truth as I say it. Whatever I say. It is a very realistic acceptance of the reality of the world. Yeah, don't take it because I said it. For example, I may be telling you 10 sentences. 9 of them made sense to you. 1 of them didn't. Okay? Keep it in question. Because 9 sentences made sense does not justify that 10th sentence is also correct. Not the deviation starts from this. Deviation doesn't start from the beginning telling the non-reality. Nothing, something definitely not acceptable, unacceptable. No, everything starts from the acceptable base and then may deviate. So nobody is completely unfallible or infallible, including the Pope. Even there may be somebody Catholic, not among us, but somebody listens to it. I'm sorry, my Catholic friend, including the Pope, he's a human being. He has a free will. Unless somebody is corrected by God, because of its representation of religion, depends again. This also depends on. This is described belongs to only prophets, because they are employed in order to represent the teachings of the Quran in the revelation. So they must be corrected by God. No, the Islamic teaching never claims that prophets are by nature unfallible. No. They are human beings. They have free will, but because of the position that they represent God's message, God's eternal message to mankind, they must be protected so that I should not hesitate. For example, if someone, if the if God says in the Quran or somewhere, what the Prophet said to you and presented to you, 99% correct. But 1% is not. Which one? Not explained. What happens? Everything narrated or observed in the life of the Quran, the Prophet, that it may be the one which is wrong, which is not correct. What becomes now the trust in prophethood? Nothing at all. So prophets must be corrected when they make a mistake. Not the prophets are not expected to be never makes a mistake. That is Islam, the core of Islamic teaching. Everybody knows that. But some people extend it to other people. That is arbitrary because they are not like prophetic examples to me, to my understanding. Prophetic examples is the main criterion that anytime I have to go and use it as a reference. Apart from the prophet, everybody is subject to questioning. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question here.
Yeah. Thank you. This is an interesting comment in terms of these representative of the speech of God. They're human beings like all of us, given various tools, potentialities, and we all make mistakes. We all learn through trial and error. And from what I heard in Dr. Ali's, Brother Ali's discourse right now about when a prophet makes a mistake, then he's corrected by God, which teaches the human being, oh, wow, okay, so this is where I erred. I'm thinking about myself as a human being. We all make mistakes like every often, yeah. And then sometimes it's you need a human being to remind us of where am I erring. Yeah, I think it's sometimes it may take a while, or maybe I think, yeah, as a human being, I mean, obviously, I'm thinking in terms of we all want to make sure that we are, I guess, presented with where we are erring, and then so we do need a human being to let us know on that. And I don't know, I was just wondering about where this maybe perhaps people become like a means acting on behalf of the creator of the universe to let us know. So like how we say everything is a sign, a message, so we can see that. But in the case of the prophets, it's directly coming from the creator of the universe to make one realize their mistake. Like I was wondering, like how is that different from me? But I think in terms of things around me are messages helping me realize and recognize where my mistakes are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that sounded more like a comment.
Yeah,
That
sorry.
question.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Worked it out.
Thank you.
For example, Afallahu anke in the Quran. May Allah forgive you. And then continues, why did you do that? And you shouldn't do that. Correction. Again, another verse, we said, الذي خلق الحياة ليبلوكم تبارك الذي بيده الملك. What is it? Got it. Okay. Just a minute. No. Inna fatahna laki fathan mubina. Yeah. I'm confused. Inna fatahna laki fathan mubina. ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر. For example, the Quran is addressed to everyone, including the Prophet himself and you and me too. God tells me that in order God to forgive your past dhanb, gunah, it's not kufr, gunah. It means sin. Sorry, I'm speaking in Turkish. So your sin, past sin, as well as the future one. What does it mean? Yes, if I ask Allah's forgiveness, Allah will forgive the promises that forgive my past sins and future sins. But this includes the Prophet as well. Ka is a singular form. لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنبِكَ. So what does it mean? Making mistakes, slip of the feet, slip of tongue, and making a wrong decision is quite normal. But Allah says, guarantees, for him means forgiven. But as far as the first addressee of the Quran, who is the Prophet, is concerned, Allah forgives it, corrects it, and makes you an unquestionable leader of the representation of the Quranic teaching. There must be one, otherwise I cannot apply the Quran to my human life living conditions. So it is necessary. Anyway, it comes to my mind that this is a very important point, infallibility of anyone. So how are we going to keep the balance? Sorry, I'm just keeping interrupting you again and again.
Thank you, Brother Ali. Thank you for commenting. So, Faria, you want to?
Yeah, and thank you. That was very helpful. So the first addressee definitely is it's an embodiment of me, of how, what am I, what my human nature here is. So yes, I am a fallible individual, and I learn through making mistakes, and that's why the Quranic message applies to everybody in this regards. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think a lot of time people say, oh yeah, he's a sacred person, she's sacred, like we defy people or things that, oh yeah, it doesn't apply to them. Like even like I think one may fall into attributing such characteristics to even, I would say, the Prophet as well. Oh yeah, like without, I mean, and then the message doesn't speak to us if I'm not able to resonate or connect also to the human being it's conveyed to. So yeah, alhamdulillah, that was helpful.
Alhamdulillah, thank you for the comments. All right, so fourth point. I think we are at time here, so maybe we can leave this for next week, inshallah, the fourth point.
Another? Yeah, sorry if I may.
Go ahead, yeah.
Another thing I was wondering, like on page 158, when the author is talking about something about imitation, I don't remember. Yeah. Millions of Arabic books are in circulation, some written by friends of the Quran in order to resemble and imitate it, others written by its enemies in order to confront and criticize it. In order to resemble and imitate it, I was wondering, what does that mean? I'm not sure, maybe did we cover that part? But anyhow, did we?
We touched upon it.
Yeah. Okay, so imitation, I was thinking in terms of, so if personally, I think if we apply the case in terms of, if I think I know what the Quran means for me as an individual, then then why would I even think of imitating it? Would be something like, you apply it and then you wanna express out your inspiration from it. I was wondering like why.
So you can take it from one aspect as the way in the name of science that, or in the name of technology, in the name of this, all this discovery that you're finding.
Mm.
Nobody sees the order of the universe.
Mm-hmm. So why am I imitating
So
it?
whatever is device or gadget that you're interacting with is coming from, is an imitation of the so the one aspect is, hey, in the name of the one who gave existence to this order, the one who gave existence to this universe, and the one who gave existence to the way this technology is working. And the other is in the name of the inventor, or in
Okay. I don't know. I don't quite catch. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I don't know what the author means by here, imitation. But I get your point. But all right, let me think about it. I'm sorry, I was just a
that's
little off guard today. But interesting.
so imitation also is like that. All the books that claim that they have the solutions.
They're imitating each
So
other.
to your human problems, maybe a psychologist may write a book in the name of this psychologist's studies.
So that's fine.
That will be the solutions to
Yeah.
your.
Sure.
Yeah, and then what the Quran offers is.
Not in the name.
Does a psychologist, know you much more than the one who's the owner, the one who gives you existence, the one. So in that sense, many books have been written, and
so. Okay, so that makes sense in terms of definitely any, like you're saying, any discipline, the person would write it in the name of that discipline, which is fine. I mean, that's how secular education works. But like what is here being mentioned, that millions of Arabic books are in circulations. Arabic books, like what? Arabic books about what? Arabic books, some written by friends of the Quran, as in people who got inspired by the Quranic message to resemble and imitate it. That's a positive thing, right? To resemble and imitate it, because like, hey, when you admire something, you're like, oh, I wanna be a replica of this. Or if I get inspired by, how we say, people getting inspired by something, and then they're like, oh yeah, let me, this is interesting. I also got inspired by that. So let me also do this. So that's in a positive lens, I would say.
In that sense, yeah. It would be.
In that sense. So is this what the author is mentioning here? In this 1, 2, 3, third paragraph of page 158?
All right, let's hear what Brother Ali has to say.
Now, let me give you an example. For example, any scientific experiment done in the laboratories may be by certain people used as a material to defend secular ideology. But the things that things are happening by themselves. I demonstrated it. This causes this and this, and it becomes like this because of the effect of this, etc., etc. Yeah. What you want to do, you go to the same lab, do the same experiment, and explain it in your way. What am I doing now? I am imitating that scientific research in order to challenge the ideology behind it. That is why the imitation doesn't mean exactly what the Quran says, how the Quran does. No, the word is misleading. Yeah, of course. But the same subject may be used by another person. So, for example, somebody else says, okay, I'm going to, as the Quran says, everything is glorifying God in the world. Look, I'm going to present you, everything is glorifying Mother Nature. What is it doing? In this sense, imitating the Quran's topic, and in order to challenge the idea again. But if a believer in the Quran or in scientific interpretation of the events. Let's take the scientific interpretation of the event. Somebody studies, let's say, frogs. How do they behave? How do they have their community, etc. And says, look, they are instinctive in the nature of frogs to do that. Another person says, okay, I'm going to imitate this and do a research on pigeons and support his idea. What happens? Imitating in order to supporting the idea. Let's come to imitating the Quran. Quran gives the example of what? For example, many things in the world, the Quran gives the example of as fly, example of the mountain, birds, and how the birds really migrate in groups, in a line. What's beautiful again, they make a V shape in order to really resist the most dynamic or aerodynamic form of flying with the less energy, etc. You start doing the same thing on the lives of bees or, I don't know, snakes in order to support the same ideology. Got it? So imitation, the word imitation means here in these two positive and negative, in order to challenge, in order to support, to show the respect of the teachings of an ideology. Everywhere it happens. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Thank you. That was clear.
Good examples.
Yes.
All right, inshallah. So we'll stop here for today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hurmati Surat al-Fatiha.
Ameen.